Okay, so here we are, Module 8. You'll notice that in Module 8, which is week 8, we're going to be working on, this is a final, if you would, project, kind of bringing together all of the things that we've, been working on this past 8 weeks. So this is the machinist vise. This is found on page 687 in your tech drawing book. Okay, all of the pieces are there, as well as its arrangement on how to put it together. Now, what you're going to be handing in, I do have a drawing guide in here, so I want to go through the resources that you have available for putting this all together. So we did do an overview last week, so you can always go back to, and that's going to be found in the session recordings, but let's just go over it again. So you'll notice that you have drawing borders here in this folder. So in this folder, you'll see an A, B, and a C. These are English drawings, so you won't need to worry about metric units or anything like that. So, so depending on the size of the part and where you're at, the drawing borders are there. Oh, actually, why am I saying that? You're only going to need it for the assembly drawing, not for the other ones. So the C size boarding is probably the one that you're going to use. I apologize. So, so only assembly drawing is what you're responsible for, but there are the borders for you. Then you're going to notice that I have the machinist vise resources here. So in here is where I have put a couple of different things. Okay. Now, the only one that you need to make, okay, is going to be the final assembly drawing, the final assembly drawing. So I'm going to click there first because this is what you're aspiring to. This is what you're going to be handing in. So this drawing is a 3-view. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit, a 3-view, and I'm on a C-size border. So you're going to want to pull that C-size border in. You're going to be creating a bill of material with the items corresponding to the balloons that we see here. Notice that we have a full section, and it's got the cutting plane lines through the top view going right down the center. And then the sections are found right here in what would be our front view section, if you would. And then we've got a right side view with a breakout section. Okay. Now, this is going to be what you'll be handing in for Module 8, the final assembly drawing, going through this process. So this is what you want to make everything look like. Couple things to notice here. We had talked about some of these items. Notice that when we have different parts that are coming together, their hatching is either different or going in opposite directions. Okay, so you need to do that. You can, it then just makes it obvious that these are separate parts. If you just start putting hatch in place, it's going to put it all in the same orientation, and everything will be going at the same angle. So you have to go up to the top in the hatch and change those settings. Okay. And we demonstrated that, but if you have questions with that, let me know. Additionally, you're going to be creating a bill of material. On the annotations tab, there's a table portion. Now, when we did it for the example in the AutoCAD book, they had a little bit different headings at the bottom here. Okay. I want you to use the ones that are here. List the item first in this case, the quantity, the description, and then finally, this is the part number. Notice that we call them standard parts. These are considered like hardware. So for instance, if you go to the hardware store and you have bins of, just screws and nuts and items like that, that's what those top two are considered, the taper pin as well as the flathead cap screw. That's what that is. It's a flathead cap screw. Okay. So you don't need to make a drawing or you don't need to really draw any of those. You just need to point to where they would be in the assembly. Now, you will notice that the flathead cap screws, I don't show anywhere on here, so you don't even have to draw them. Okay, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about the taper pin as well. So you'll notice that number 11 here is attached to the balloon for number 6. So number 6, if we look, is the jaw plate. The jaw plate has those countersunk holes in it. Okay, but notice in the views that I have here, you don't even have to draw those. Remember, you're only drawing the parts to the point that you need to pull them into your assembly. Okay. And we're doing 3 views of it. Even though it shows the details for that, you're not making the detailed drawing for that. You're only going to be showing it in here so that we can balloon it. So notice that we don't see the counter bores here because we're going straight through the middle. Our cutting plane is going straight through the middle. We'll show that there are center lines there, but then you'll notice that the balloon is attached just so that those are the fasteners that are going to actually attach that jaw plate to the base. Okay. So, so that's how you're going to actually model it. So before you start getting, too crazy, make sure that you're using this as your guide to how much detail you need to put in place, okay, to pull those parts in. And then you'll notice that all of the other ones are here as well. Now let's look at these other parts. So if we go back to that machinist vice resources, in the middle here are for reference only. I realize that some of the dimensions in the book, in the pictorials, aren't always really easy to see, and you're not exactly sure what they may or may not be pointing to. So that's what these are out here for. You are not making, it says you do not need to make these detailed drawings, but they're here for you to reference supplementally to what's in the book. Okay, so for instance, if I look at that jaw plate, yes, this is the detailed drawing for it. Originally, I was kind of leaning towards having you guys create all the detailed drawings, but I think we just got a little bit late in the semester, which is fine. I didn't want to add this to what you guys were already working on, but these are out here for you. So if you did want to draw them, but notice that if we go back to the assembly, we didn't even see the counter bore in there. Okay, so you don't have to worry about that. You're just going to show it so that we can balloon it on the assembly. Now, additionally, in those machinist resources, so there's a PDF for each one of the individual parts. Now, the one that we see up here on the very top, the machinist vice assembly here, and it says no balloons and it says model. If I click on that, this is more of, and I created this for you so that you would have just a better view of just the actual 3 views of the assembly without worrying about, this is kind of like right before you're going to be putting the balloons and the bill of material and the border in place. So here now, I would assume that most of you would probably look here to start so that you know exactly how you need to put it in place and what that part is going to look like. Yes.
Well, I remember you saying something about
you mean the vice screw? The vice screw, yes. What about the hidden lines?
I just thought I remembered you saying.
Yeah. So you'll notice that here is the vice screw right here for if you've become familiar with some of those parts. If we look underneath the camera, the vice screw is this, what we call an Acme thread. Okay. And it actually has square threads, and they're a little bit different form because they can push through more torque and rotational, well, not really rotational speed, but they can push harder, and they're not going to strip as easily as ones that have points on them. Okay, they're a square thread. Now, instead of drawing that square thread, we can simplify it by representing it in the assembly where we see it as hidden lines. Okay, so you don't need to draw those screw threads as Acme screw threads. If we were creating the detail drawing, if we look at the detail drawing for that one, and again, you don't need to make this, okay, but it's here for you if you wanted to, when you model it so that you have a little bit of extra detail. Where is it? This, the very first one, the vice screw. This is how we would model it. So this gives you all the details here, but notice I didn't draw one thread. And when we point to this area where it is hidden, this is what we call a simplified version of showing threads. Okay, and that's perfectly acceptable. That's in the standard to show them just like this. But when we call them out, now you have the note on what they actually are. Okay, and then when they would be manufactured, there are standards to making those threads. So you don't have to put those details on a drawing. Okay, but again, this is here for you for supplemental information. Now you would have to draw this side view right here because this is one that you're going to need for the assembly drawing, but you wouldn't have to do this additional detail drawing, okay, because you would have it drawn up in this area. You're going to draw it just to full scale, okay, and then you'll be, inserting this into your assembly, and we'll do a little bit of that in just a bit. So any questions about your responsibilities? So for this, I just want to reiterate, really important, that for this assignment, what you're handing in is only the assembly drawing with balloons, bill of material, and border, the final assembly drawing to get you to you know, really that's what this is about. It's just, you know, practicing getting that in its final form. Any questions about that? Okay. All right. The Dropbox for that, the assignment for that is right here. It's worth 30 points. Okay. And then, yeah, here are the session recordings. So the last time we were together, when we introduced the project, that video is here. I'll populate this one there as well. So, so if there's nothing more questions for, you know, how to do this, what I did want to do was just kind of do another demonstration of, let's kind of get this in place and, you know, kind of get you introduced to pulling the parts in, how to balloon one more time, putting the table, the bill of material in place, that kind of thing. Okay. Now, I'm not going to dictate to you, you know, if you want to follow along or not. If you feel like, yeah, I got it, I know how to do that, that's fine. But remember, the drawing guide is out there for you. If you're not going to follow along with me now, then the videos will be out there for you to get the full picture. Okay. All right. So if I get a question in 20 minutes, how do you pull in the border or how do you pull in a part? I'm going to say, go back to the video. Okay. Because now is your chance to follow along again. All right. So, so that's what I'm going to do. And you can be doing what you want in the background, but I don't want anybody saying, I didn't know I needed to do this, that, or the other. Okay. Or I don't know how to do that, because now's your chance to witness it. So, so I've got AutoCAD open here. Let me change my settings here. I was in another class. I was doing a little bit different work. Crosshairs. I'm going to go back to white so we can see them. Apply, and okay. All right. So, so the first thing I need to do is I need to start pulling my assembly in to kind of determine, you know, how big that's going to be. Now, mine's going to look just a bit different than yours because I'm going to have the detailed drawings with all of the borders, their individual borders, their individual dimensions, but you'll see how we deal with that. You won't have that because, so those will be a couple less steps that you'll have to take. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to insert my first part. As I look at this assembly, okay, everything hinges off this base. Everything is attached to that base, as you can see. Okay, so I'm going to pull that base in first. So as we go back to AutoCAD over here, I'm going to go to Insert, Blocks from Library. And I'm going to, and these are all going to be pulled in 1-to-1. So you don't want to change the scale of these at all, the individual parts. I'm going to browse Block Library. And I'm going to go to the directory where I have these located. Module assignments, and then the machinist vice. Okay, so here's my machinist vice. I actually brought in the full directory, so now they're all here for me. Okay, so so all I'm going to do is I'm going to find where the base is. My base is right here. And remember, this is not a click and drag. This is a click, click. Okay. So I'm gonna look down at the bottom here, make sure that it says insertion point check. That means that I'm going to control where the insertion point is going to go on the screen, as well as you want to make sure that it's checked with uniform scale. That way the X and the Y are the very same scale. Okay. We don't want that to change. Now it's on the end of my cursor. So I clicked once, I went out in here. Remember, I'm not dragging. And I'm going to zoom out a little bit so I can just kind of see. Now, this does not have to go on the 0, 0. Okay. If you wanted to, you could, but it doesn't have to. I'm just going to left click. And now it's going to ask me what scale do I want it at. You don't want to click again. Okay. Because otherwise it's going to go to some weird scale. But at my cursor and on the command line, you're going to see that it says specify the scale. In the brackets, it says 1. That means that that's the default and you can just hit enter. Okay. And it's in. Okay. Now, you guys will not have all of the stuff here. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to explode my block. Okay. And I'm going to I'm going to erase my border and then pretty much all the dimensions. And I can actually hide the dimensions because I'm not going to need those. So I'm going to take those off just like that. You don't have to go around. And then, I forget, I think I use this view right here. I believe I'm going to be using, if I'm thinking back to the assembly, the top view, the front view, and this right side view. So I'm going to get rid of that section view because I don't need it for my assembly. And that's it. Okay, so this one's in. I'm going to get rid of those cutting plane lines too. I'm going to need cutting plane lines. So if I don't want to turn the cutting plane lines off, just because I'm going to need to put cutting plane lines back into that top view later on. So if I turn them off, then I won't be able to see them. And then if I turn them on, then the other one's going to come. So I'm just going to delete the one out. And for right now, I'm going to leave the hidden lines in place. Okay. And then I'm going to do a save on this. So I need to do a file, save as, and I'm going to save it as my assembly drawing here. Okay. So I'm going to navigate to the directory where I am saving all of my stuff. And I'm going to go into module assignments. I'll go into my machinist vice, and I'm going to call it machinist _ vice assembly, and I'll call it 1 because I already have one named. Okay. So now I have it named. Okay. So every time that I do a save, for instance, it'll go to there. Now I want to pull in my next part. Now what's nice is notice that my window is still open over here, and it has all of my parts in here because I imported the full directory that I had it in. If you don't have it in a directory, that's okay. You can go back and you can navigate to the individual part. So the next one that I'm going to pull in, and you kind of look at what like kind of makes sense. So I'm going to pull in the sliding jaw. Okay. So the sliding jaw, I just got to find it in my list here. It's right here. It looks like I'm going to click that. It's on the end of my cursor. I'm going to kind of push it up away from this. And then I'm going to hit enter to accept the 1-to-1 scale. And now it's in. So here too, again, you won't necessarily have this step here. You're going to strategically only draw the views that you need to in the individual parts. So you won't have, all of these views or all of the dimensions. Now, because my dimensions are turned off in this assembly, you'll notice that it doesn't come in with the dimensions, and that's totally fine. So now I want to get rid of that border. And don't forget that you'll need to explode that before you can delete that. Otherwise it's all one. And then I think I'm going to get rid of this. Whoopsie. Get rid of this, erase this one, that one, and I'll keep that one. Okay. Now I'll do a file, save again, just so that it's all in my assembly. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this to where it needs to go. And so you manually put it in place. Okay. So you got to kind of look. Now this is where when you, oopsie, wrong one. When you look at the machinist vice resources and you pull up that machinist vice assembly with no balloons and it's just the model, this is where this is going to come in handy. Okay. Because this gives you the lines that need to stay, the lines that don't. Now, when we're making an assembly drawing, notice that there aren't any hidden lines in here, except in one place. The one place that they are is going to be the threads that we see on that Acme threads for the vice screw. Okay. The only place, because that's really a feature on that part. Any other hidden lines, do you notice how they're all gone? All the other hidden lines are gone. If the hidden lines would be on there and we would continue, it would just get too busy. Now, the exception is going to be when the hidden lines give us maybe some clarity on something. But in this case, especially when there's a lot of parts, it's best to just keep them off. So the only place we see them is on hidden feature or on threaded feature. So here's a threaded feature. And then if you zoom in right here, there's a set screw that you're going to be putting in place. That set screw also has its hidden lines for the threads, the simplified threads. Other than that, no other hidden lines. So you can't go back and say, oh, I want to just hide all the hidden lines, because then on our vice screw, when it comes in, the hidden lines won't be there. So you have to go in and individually delete all the hidden lines. Yeah, individually delete all the hidden lines. It's okay. Don't worry. It's not that bad. Actually, deleting hidden lines, it goes a lot quicker than creating the hidden lines. So you're just going to simply go in and you're going to get rid of any of the things that you don't need that pertain to kind of these inners. Now, On the subject of center lines, some of them I keep, some of them I get rid of. It just kind of depends. So for instance, on that jaw plate where we saw the hidden lines were still in there, or I'm sorry, the center lines were still in there, that's because the balloon was kind of referring to where its fastener would go. So I don't know, I'll kind of leave the center lines in for now, and then I can always evaluate it later on. That one I know I want to leave. So here too, we would get rid of any hidden lines. Okay. So I'm not going to do that for each and every one of these because I don't think you need to, watch me delete hidden lines, but you would go around and again, comparing back to, wrong one. Comparing back to here, you'll have an idea of where, things should be. Okay. Any questions? All right. And then you just gradually position the items where they need to go. Okay. So if we go back over here, I need to now, we look at where that is. So this surface right here, and I'm going to zoom in underneath here, this surface right here lays down is going, and it's this surface right here on my part. This is the surface that's going to meet with the top of the base. It's going to ride on that surface there, right? So that means that where I position that, I'm just going to move one at a time here. Where this is, oops, where's my base? So I'm going to do move, select what I want to move, and then I'm going to go here. I think I need to turn on this. I need to turn on my object snaps. There we go. There, and then I'm going to go down over here and I'm just going to place it somewhere along here. So I'm going to go nearest. I'm going to place it, I don't know, right about there-ish. Okay. And now it's in position in that view. Now what I need to do is I'm going to take my top view and I need to put it in an orthographic projection with it. So I'm going to simply do this front line right here. And this is just a place as a reference. You could use construction lines if you wanted to. So I'm going to move this. This front face then needs to be in alignment here. Now, I need to be on center. So what I probably need to do is extend this center line so that now I have an intersection here. And then I'm going to extend this center line. So I have a little bit of an intersection. You might have to play around here a little bit because now you're placing it in the assembly. So I'm going to go back to move. I'm going to select what I have here, enter, grab that. I want to do the intersection. I don't know if the midpoint is the midpoint. It's the same. Then I'm going to go to the intersection here. And now that's in position. So you can see I didn't get rid of any of my hidden lines in the top view. You see why we want to get rid of hidden lines? Because all of a sudden they just start to be over the top of each other and it's harder to look at. So kind of comparing back to this view. Oopsie, I always picked the wrong one. This view. Notice that up here in the top view, it's easier to kind of see the top view of that sliding jaw as opposed to having all of those hidden lines in there. I did keep in the center lines here and here for where those fasteners go. You probably need the line type adjusted a little bit because you're not seeing the little dash. But any questions kind of about this process? And then it's just a matter of manually cleaning up lines that you need to get rid of, particularly the hidden lines. You can get rid of all of those, but you can't hide those hidden lines because you need them for the thread callouts. Okay. As you get into, creating this. So here now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of get rid of all of these, get rid of all these. You can see it already starts, being easier to look at. So get rid of all the hidden lines. Now, let's say you delete too many and all of a sudden you're like, oh crap, I didn't want to delete that one. When I'm in the command for selecting, I can hit R, enter for remove, and I can remove one of them and then continue on and then hit enter. And then the last one is gone. Okay. Or start over. It's up to you. So I'm going to leave the center lines though for where these would attach. Okay. And you just kind of keep cleaning up. So any questions kind of on pulling parts in and a little bit of the rules and where you can go for reference to be sure that you have it in its final form. So have this out even as you're creating the individual parts, because you do need to create the individual parts themselves, but you don't want to create more geometry than you need to. Okay. Questions? All right. I would imagine that many of you aren't really quite to this, stage yet, and you'll be working on putting this together. So, so you can certainly, continue working independently to get it, to this point, and then I'll take questions that you have during the rest of the time today. So I want to really kind of give you mostly independent work time to work on what you need to. Yes.
Since except for that specific one of the screw, since we're getting rid of the hidden lines, can we just ignore the ones that are not necessary, such as the one that the screw goes into on the base, like the screw holes and that, but the rest of the hidden lines that might be able to turn into a object line later on in like the cutoff images in the book. C section.
So for what I guess where are you particularly?
For like if you go to the base model, there in the model itself there are screws going into the base that would be where the plate goes.
Right.
Since it's not shown on there.
Right. You wouldn't have to even put it in your drawing. That's what I'm trying to be strategic about this, because you're creating your parts for the final assembly. You aren't creating parts for details. So that's a good question, Joshua. I appreciate you bringing that up. So Joshua's question was, so when I look at, for instance, I'm going to go back under here, you'll notice that there are screw threads in here. Do I need to represent those in my base? Let's look. Where you want to go is you want to go here. Do you see those screw threads in the base? No, because our section is going through here and we're not using any hidden lines in that top view. So that's why you want to be looking at this at the same time you're looking over here, because you only want to draw as much as you need to. And that'll become then a time saver for you, because you don't have to create the detail drawing for each one of these. You don't have to dimension that. You don't have to put it on a border for each of the details, but you have to draw them enough information so you can insert them into this assembly. Does that make sense to everybody? So it's not as big of an assignment as maybe it looked at like originally, okay? Because we're drawing our views for the assembly. Use this to decide how am I going to, how much detail is going to go into that part? Okay, that individual part. So yeah, great question, because now you don't need to draw the threads. I was deleting all those hidden lines. You guys don't even need to put those hidden lines in. That's why I was saying I'm doing some extra clicks and I don't need those in there, because on assembly drawings, you want to kind of stay away from hiddens because they're going to just clutter things up, right? Now, this is not a complete set of working drawings then, right? A complete set of working drawings is all of the detail drawings and an assembly drawing. We're focusing just on the assembly drawing, which is enough here. Believe me, this is enough. All right. We got a lot of practice on details in module 5, right? So I think you're solid on that. So that's why we're just focusing here on the final assembly drawing, because this is the part that's really kind of new in this section. Yes.
What are in the top view? What are those little phones that are in between the cutting plane?
These guys, that one and that one.
I don't think I have those in.
Yeah, I gotta look. Let's see. AutoCAD.
Yeah, you have them.
Yep, they're on, oh, I know what they are. They're these little side. So if you look at, there's grooves on the side of the slide jaw right here. And when you're in the top view here, because this is at an angle, those are those. You can actually see those from the top. Yeah, yeah, when you look down. Okay. I'm gonna stop there. I'll pull it, you know what? I'll pull in one more part. So I'm gonna do another insert. I'm gonna pull in another part, insert blocks from library. If you use that method of pulling in your entire directory, if you have those organized that way, they'll all be here. So let me pull in. Oh, let me pull in the jaw plate. Let me pull in the jaw plate. Where is that? There it is. Now remember, I drew mine with the details in mind, and these have got to come in 1 to 1. I'm going to explode this. You guys won't have these steps because you will not have done this part of it, okay? And you probably will not even have put on the counter bores because you don't need them in the view that we have. So I'm going to get rid of those, okay? And I'm going to get rid of this, just the hidden lines. So in my side view, now this jaw plate is going to go on here and on the front right here. And that's why I kept the center line there, because that center line is where this is going to come in. So for the first one, I'm going to move the first one. I'm going to go to that intersection. I'm going to go down here, just panning, and I'm going to put that one there. Done. Okay. Then all I need to do is I can do a copy. I can go this, and that. I'm going to copy from here to that intersection where it's on the face there. There it is. And it's in place. And then I would need to add then a top view. So this view actually, when I drew it for my detail, is not needed in here. Now I'm just going to, do the width and go straight up and then draw it so that I see it in here. Okay. So I would do line, go straight up to there, and then it's the full width. So now I can just do this, and that. And there it is. Then the same thing for the front face here. So I'm going to go line, see, from that intersection, go straight up to here. That's the front face there. And then trim from here, and then get rid of the rest of that there. And then I can get rid of this line too, because that was just positioning my other one. And then I would have to trim away what wouldn't be seen in that view, but so there would be some additional work. And then again, don't forget, you can use this as your guide. Okay, so we just put in that plate that's right here, and right here, right here, and right here. Okay. Hatching. Why don't we go over hatching real quick, because you'll probably be ready for hatching in not too long. So our cutting plane line is going to go straight through the middle here. So you'll notice that I have a bunch of center lines here. I'm just going to get rid of all of them, okay, because they're going to be over the top of each other from pulling the different parts in. And I'm going to go to my cutting plane line, and I'm going to start it. Now I'm going to start it at the, I don't know, the midpoint here, and go all the way, and you have to go through, okay? And then you can always grab this, pull it over, kind of use those grips, and then you're going to put on, now you're going to be putting on your arrowheads. What I wouldn't do just yet is put the arrowheads in place, only because they have to match, about the size of whatever the font is going to be. So I would add those after you pull in your border and you know what the scale of that border is and what the size of the text is going to be. So I would just put it in place for right now, but you're going to be going through there. And now here in this view, I'm going to leave this center line here, because when I pull my vice screw in, I'm going to have to add that. And it's going to go through the center here. But I want to show you when I go to my hatch, so the X hatch layer, you're going to activate, you're going to go to the hatch lines here. And right now, ANSI 131, I think, is usually the default. So you're going to go in, and for instance, I'm going to call that out as that. Now, When I put the hatching in place for the base then, okay, and I'm just gonna put it right next to it. I might have to adjust this a little bit, I forget. But let's say I'm gonna put the hatching in here. By default, do you see how it's gonna go in the same direction and it's gonna be the same pattern, okay? So to change that, we would have to go up to the top here. Now, number one, you can change the type of pattern. So if I go to, let's say, the ANSI 132, it's going to be two closer lines together. That's different. But when we have parts that are together, we also need to change the angle of the hatch. Okay. So up here is the angle over on the right-hand side. Right now it's at 0. You should be able to change that by selecting in there. I'm going to put 90. Okay. And if I do that and I go back in here, notice how it changed the direction 90 degrees from where it was. And now it's at an opposing angle. So just as reference, do you see how that looks? You know, like now we have separate parts rather than a continuous part. So you need to do that. That is the standard. You have to do that when you have parts that are touching. They cannot be of the same type of hatching, and they can't be in the same direction. Okay, so I'll be looking for that. And you'll notice that is on here. So I would try to mimic exactly what we see here. Okay, so notice we have those opposing angles on anything that meets. Okay. All right. Okay. So I'm going to stop there on this video. I think this will give you enough to kind of look at and to, you know, to play with. And you probably have some questions that are going to come up. And then maybe I will kind of see where we're at a little bit later today. I'll probably stop back in here and we'll do some ballooning and some bill of material work, or we'll wait for Wednesday. Okay, either one. Just kind of depends on where everybody's at. All right, so I'm going to let you guys work, and I'll be here in the background, you know, and you can independently work, and I'll be checking in with you every so often.